Hello, I'm Mary Gay George. Let's look at some highlights in Level 2 of Artistry at the piano. Level 2 is early intermediate level work. The books are organized the same way that we discussed in Level 1, and I want to show you first the keyboard patterns that are in the first lesson of Level 2, which is Lesson 5. Here we have contractions, and this keyboard pattern is featured in one of the free workshops that you will find on artistryatthepiano.net. And that's a wonderfully productive and exhilarating keyboard pattern. And so do look into that free workshop. But on that same page, they also learn how to do shifts, that is, substituting one finger for another in order to move across the keyboard efficiently. And they learn crossings. They cross 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 back, and then 1 3 1 3 1 3 1 3 back, 1 4. I even do 1 5 because sometimes that is necessary, but it wouldn't fit on the page. So you certainly can add that with my blessings. Okay, and then in Lesson 6, the next lesson, they begin studying the major scale. We of course have preparation pieces in Level 2. We don't have quite as many. There are 5 here, and one of them is only 1 line long, but it turns into a whole page piece because of the way we have put in repeats. We were pretty sneaky that way. We wanted to save paper and save pages to keep costs down and yet get the student playing for a whole page of music. The titles, Allegro. Well, of course, that's going to be fast and it's with contractions and they're going to love it. Threnody is a song of lamentation. Wondering is a song about thinking through something. An antique melody, and this long piece is a Turkish dance, and it is very wild and woolly. All right? Now, I also wanted to show you that when in Lesson 6 we start the study of the major scales, the student makes a chart of the fingerings. Not the teacher telling them, not a whole book of page after page after page of all the different scales and chords. We learn the basic principles of doing things, and then we have a working knowledge of it. We don't need all of this written out. It's working knowledge. We can make it up as we need it, you see. So this is another thing that Artistry at the Piano accomplishes. They understand the fingering principles, they fill in these charts, and they're ready to go. When we teach syncopation, it's not just a short definition of you accent the notes that usually are not accented and go on to the next thing. In the workbook, we have 4 pages of work on syncopations, and here in Musicianship, we have 2 more pages that implement all the things that were talked about, showing in both simple meter and compound meter how syncopations look, what to recognize, how they will sound, and just getting used to this wonderful rhythmic device. We don't introduce this before we know they have got the steady pulse that they need and the flexibility to keep the regular pulse going, but to bring in the syncopation as what it should be, a surprise. All right, the keyboard patterns continue. Ear training continues. In Lesson 7, we have inverted triads. Lesson 8, how to find the root of a triad when you're reading it. And then here, on the last page, inside back cover, we have the 3 divisions of fingering principles so that they can review that and refer to it if necessary. I don't find my students having to use this, but the page is there if they need it. All right? Then, at the end of Workbook 2, we have our usual analysis and aid to memory. We have these analysis and aid to memory throughout the course. And so we take the things that they have been studying, we have them analyze the piece and memorize it before they ever play it. They can recite to you what they're playing. So in this case, they're playing broken triads. And so they have to analyze what the triad is and then block it and say, this is a C major first inversion, this F major root. And we shortened designation so that they don't have to give a lecture. Just they know about the numbers to use for this. So it's a C major 6-3, F major, root, B diminished, ooh, and 6-4, and so on, you see. And then the piece is written out just in block form over here, and they have to finish writing in the block chords so that they and they do that by memory. Then they have the piece. Step 2 is to play it by memory. Step 3 is to transpose it to all the keys. Now, think of it. They've learned to analyze. They've learned to write out in block form what they analyzed. Then they learn to play it. Then they learn to transpose it to all the keys. This is thorough. And what a triumph it is for them. They are thrilled. So level 2 is just filled with a lot of adventures. The keyboard becomes their own. They can get over it. They find ways to manipulate different figures and use fingering to get them where they need to be. Their hands are being developed further, and we don't start playing, you notice, we didn't start playing triads until they got to lesson 4 in level 1. And that is because we did not want tension building in the wrist or in the hand to play chords. That they can, sometimes if they play nothing but chords in the left hand, it gets to be just like a rock. And it's hard to break that. In lesson 8, we have consecutive pedaling. We introduce this in the workbook with a series of experiments that the students do to find out how the damper pedal does change the sonority of the instrument. And we go into some of the scientific elements of it, and the students get fascinated with this. And then in musicianship too, we study how to do it, and it takes the place of the rhythm readiness exercises, because you do pedal rhythmically. And I start by giving them just a rhythm for their pedaling, and the pulse written underneath of how they will operate the pedal. Pedal down, pedal up, shown with a quarter note and a quarter rest. These notes are smaller, and it's marked as the pedal rhythm. And so we go through all the possible combinations of foot movement with hand movement. And then in the fourth rhythm exercise, which is pedaling, they begin playing hands together, and they connect all of this line of music with the pedal by using the same fingering over for each one of those combinations. And then they can hear clearly whether or not they are connecting the notes perfectly, and no smudgy, I should say, overlap. And it takes the repeat, so that they learn that you have to make that connect to the beginning if it's suitable, or it could be the end of a phrase, and they have to make that decision. The final exercise in this is even more elaborate, with a 3-note structure, the same as this was, rather like hymn structures at this level. And they learn to pedal this, play it with dynamics, and I change from the rhythmic pedaling that I've been marking to how it is normally marked in the score. So the first phrase has my rhythmic markings, the second phrase and final phrase has it the way they will see it marked in music. And the reminder to always learn the piece before you start trying to use the damper pedal, because otherwise there's too much to think about. You can get in the habit of using the damper pedal incorrectly, and then it's hard to change. Our feet learn things very quickly and very thoroughly, and it's hard to change them. So don't start to use the pedal until you know exactly what you want it to do. And then, of course, they will use the pedal in their pieces in this. So that's level 2 in a nutshell, and a wonderful nutshell. Enjoy chewing on it.